Get ready to dive into the comic book realm where heroes rise and villains take the helm. We're here to dissect the stories in the art. Our source material, we tear the panels apart.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. We have come to the end of the road with The Mask. We are here to finish this trilogy out of The Mask. The Mask Strikes Back. Now, we've already talked about it. We've talked a little bit about the movie and how it impacted us because that was the first exposure to The Mask. Well, this book that we're getting ready to get into, it was on the shelves in 96, 2 years after the movie had released. And I think, in my opinion, actually, there's definitely some influence in this book from that movie. Now, what I mean is that The Mask now is popular.
Right.
A mask is mainstream.
Oh, yeah. Every dickhead's running around yelling smoking.
That's the truth, man. It's the truth.
That's not a world I wanted to live in. I'll tell you that much. Smoking. Oh, stop.
Smoking. Yes, very much so. So Jim Carrey has made this character popular. So is that going to have an influence on the story itself? I think you'll find out that it did. But yeah, as we get into this third one, it's on the shelves. It's Dark Horse is publishing this still. John Arcudi on the script, pencils by Doug Mankey, inks by Keith Williams and Rich Perota, colors by friend of the show, Gregory Wright. That's right. Lettering by Lois Buhalis. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into the synopsis of this third act, this third book, The Mask Strikes Back. So we get to meet a new character by the name of Rick. Actually, there's a few characters that we meet. We meet Rick and his friends, Archie, Hugo, and Ben. Rick has a bit of a tendency to obsess about this Big Head character that's been around. Now, this is only a few months after Big Head, which was the name for the mask, apparently last struck, I guess you would say, and fell into the water. So Rick finds himself over at the pier, looking off into the distance, thinking about Big Head. And he goes over there one night and he ends up finding the mask. Well, sure enough, he puts the mask on and turns into the mask. Now, we find out Walter actually escaped, badly burned, and is in a hospital. And the nurses call Lieutenant Kellaway and Lionel, and they show up at the hospital. And just before they get there, Walter escapes the hospital, and he is on the loose. So Walter is he's definitely alive. He is definitely alive. Now, Rick immediately becomes the mask, heads back to his friend's house, Archie's house, apartment, or whatever, and he tells his friends, guys, I'm Big Head. They don't believe him. He's like, no, check this out. I am really him. He takes the mask off. He shows, and then they're like, they still can't believe. Now, Lieutenant Kellaway and Detective Lionel, are on the case trying to find Walter, who was run off. He robbed the Big and Tall shop, took some cigars. He's out there. Walter ends up hearing a broadcast about the mask's return, about Big Head's return, and immediately heads out to go and find him. At some point, Rick is out wearing the mask and he turns himself in. His whole goal when he first put the mask on was that he was going to buck authority. And the next thing, he's turning himself in. He's arrested, and the cop's like, okay, you're coming downtown. He's like, all right. So he goes downtown to the police office and promptly pulls out an old-timey bomb that he pulls out and blows up the police headquarters, police precinct.
Again, and this is just a local issue.
Right. Now, what's interesting here, this is the point where I was, okay, we have turned a corner with this character, because every single one of those guys are covered in soot, but they're all alive.
Yeah.
Nobody's dead. Nobody has holes in them. Everybody is alive.
Right. No one's missing a limb.
No.
It's like no one's ever seen a fucking bomb go off in a Vietnam movie.
Now, out on the street, the mask ends up running into Walter, and there's this big fight where, again, we have no idea about the powers of this mask. I just know at one point he becomes a, Civil War general, and he leads a ton of animals into battle and up against Walter and overwhelm Walter. But it ends up being a fight that the mask has to retreat. So there's definitely some crazy violence that's going on, but it's not over the top like we had in the first two issues. Kellaway and Catherine, though, they meet for a drink, and they end up hearing about this on the news. They head down to the scene, and they run into Rick's friends. Rick, by the way, who retreated, he retreated by jumping into a puddle and disappearing, only to reappear at Archie's house in the toilet.
Okay. Can you imagine you're a writer, you're a comic book writer, and you're just a comic book writer. You don't, it's all about whatever the next gig is, whatever the editor gives you. And you're given the mask. And like, all right, well, I don't know anything about this character. I saw the Jim Carrey movie. I mean, who didn't? But what are the rules? Whatever you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the whole point of the mask? Is it like, do you want me to do like the Jim Carrey thing? Like, yeah, kind of keep it kind of similar in tone because that's what people are familiar with now. Okay, well, what happened in the previous books? Don't worry about that. That was BC. This is AD. Okay. More importantly, you can do anything you want with this character. Okay, well, what is his power? Whatever you want him to be. Well, what can he do? Whatever you want him to do. Feels like you're not giving me a lot of parameters here. There aren't.
Well, and
make it fun. Make it fun and colorful and silly.
Yeah. Now, Arcudi has wrote all three of these, so he knows what this character can do. He's done it in the past.
Okay,
he's
that
killed
same bit with the editor. That same bit with the editor's having a conversation with him. Okay, make him do this now.
Right. The violence has definitely been dialed back.
Oh God, yeah.
You can tell that it's been dialed back. And I said,
when we talked about the last two books, I was really into the story. I'm not the most biggest violent gore hound, but I liked the first two books together as one story. And I got to this one, and because of that change in tone, because of how silly it got, and it almost feels like Arcudi is like, this isn't really the mask that I want. This feels like, well, this is my character. I should write the next book. But I can kind of see why he might not have come back after this.
Yeah,
because it almost doesn't feel like the same character.
Right. Yeah, we're 5 years after the first book hit the shelves, and we have a multi-million-dollar movie with a multi-million-dollar star that has now shaped
insane amount of money. $23 million budget, almost $400 million. This thing made.
Jeezy, criminy.
Yeah, wild.
Wow. So you can't help but think, okay, well, if the people like that, I want them to buy this comic.
Yeah, we'll keep doing it. Well, the other thing about it is, can you imagine? It's like the Deadpool thing. You see, not the first one, but you see the second Deadpool movie, and you're like, oh, this is great. I love this character. He's wisecracking. He's violent. Like, they dialed back a lot for the second movie for a more general audience. And now you're a kid, and you're like, Deadpool comics, please. And you're given some of the stuff that Deadpool did. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. Like, yikes. Yeah. This is not what I wanted. So there definitely had to be a concerted effort to keep it in tone with the movie because people were coming to the comic book store for that character in that movie.
Right, exactly. So Rick ends up back at Archie's house, crawls out of the toilet, and he's like, oh man, this mask, I can't take it. It's making me incredibly violent. He takes the mask off, throws it on the floor, and that's where his buddy Ben, with rock star aspirations in his eyes, grabs the mask, and he's decided, you know what, I want to use this thing to become a rock star. Yep. So he heads out with his guitar in hand, ends up getting booked at some kind of crazy venue. I don't know, that very same night. He's going to come out there. The plan is to...
Again, I'm just thinking there's a conversation between the editor and Arcudi. Well, I was like, okay, well, who are we going to have him kill now? You can't have him kill that many people.
Nobody's killing anybody today.
Yeah, no, there's no killing in this mask book. And we're like, the fuck am I supposed to have him do? I don't know. He's in a band.
It's going to be the mask gauntlet. He gets to go on like 5 different people. Oh, okay. All right. What am I going to do for? Okay. Well, you got to do something different for everybody.
Yeah. Now it's less this agent of chaos and violence and more of a genie bottle.
That's
like,
right.
I put the mask on and I can make my dreams come true.
Right. Ben goes to, he ends up getting booked at some venue. And as he proceeds to try and play the speed metal saga that he had planned to unleash upon the world, the mask takes over and begins making him sing 50s swing tunes to where everybody...
that's the one legitimate gag. The one gag that legitimately got a laugh out of me. He's like, because you just imagine, are you ready for Pantera? Well, oh, Donna. What the fuck?
Yeah. So Ben's obviously disenfranchised with what's happening. And at about this time, Walter shows up I think Walter ends up showing up at the venue as well. So does Kellaway and Lionel, I think, show up there. They're trying to track down the mask and find out what's going on. Kellaway, I think, hasn't told Lionel yet about what the mask does, but he knows these kids are involved ever since the big street brawl. So anyway, Ben ends up running out of the venue and runs into his friends, takes the mask off. Oh my goodness, this isn't what I expected. So Hugo, his buddy Hugo, the burnout. This guy is I think he's actually accused of smoking too much weed at the beginning of this book. And he's like, no, I quit that stuff. Well, Hugo puts the mask on because the guys end up getting cornered by Kellaway and Lionel. And Hugo thinks, well, in order to escape, I need to put this mask on, which he does. And he leaves. I think what he does, he puts the mask on, but then he has the mask look like himself, and he goes to his old childhood home and to meet up with his family. But as he's looking through the mask, things look like a big trip, like he's on acid the whole time. I don't know what he does mention, like he remembered seeing his friends act crazy. For him, it's something completely different. But anyway, he ends up going to his house. He sees his mom, his dad, his brother. They're sitting down at the table, but they are demons, until he finally is like, he can't take it anymore. He takes the mask off and he runs out of the house. All right. So he gets back to Archie's apartment. Archie's like this real, of the four guys here, Archie's like this real educated bookworm type of a kid. One oddball that stands out amongst these other three. But anyway, Hugo goes and meets up with his buddies and ends up giving Archie the mask. And Archie puts the mask on, and they're like, okay, what are we going to do? We got to get Kellaway and all of them off of our butts. What's your plan? Archie's like, I know, I'll fight crime as the mask. And now we have what I think everybody probably wanted the mask to do, which is become a superhero. And Archie definitely does that. Archie is the guy that had the comics that I posted the picture of on the Unspoken Issues, where he doesn't want the rain to get on his comics and his books. Well, when he puts the mask on,
you sent me that panel.
The first thing that he wants to do is become a superhero, which he does. But he's this real scrawny superhero with all this armor on, but he's able to do all the stuff that the mask does. He's invulnerable. He can whip guns out of nowhere. So he heads out onto the street and he starts fighting crime. And of course, he runs into Walter again. Walter is there. There's a massive fight at a zoo that occurs. Big fight between Walter and Archie. SWAT team's called in. It gets police attention. The SWAT team's called in. Kellaway shows up. Lionel shows up. Catherine, by the way, had a talk with both Lionel and Kellaway and said, okay, we need to put everything on the table. I need you to tell Lionel what's going on. So he told him all about the mask, what's happened in the past, and now everybody's on the same page between those three. Well, he ended up showing up at the zoo, and Walter and Archie are fighting back and forth. Archie's about to get the crap beat out of him when all of a sudden this lion, which earlier I didn't put this in my synopsis, but Archie deputized a bunch of animals at the zoo. They became his Justice League, if you will. He named them something different.
Deputies.
Justice Avengers. Yeah. So anyway, they're there to help him. Out of nowhere, this lion shows up and attacks Walter, knocking Walter into the lake. And now, of course, everybody thinks that Walter's dead. Kellaway gets to Archie and says, look, man, you could tell you're getting out of control. This mask is doing what it usually does. You may plan on, I think the mention is, what are you planning on doing? Are you planning on going to go clean up the sewers with an atom bomb? And about that point, Archie's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Even though I want to do good with this mask on, it always takes things to the extreme. I want this thing off. Pulls the mask off, and he's got it out in his hand to hand over to Kellaway, and all of a sudden, up comes the big arm of Walter. Walter grabs the mask, this thing that he's been trying to get a hold of since the second book. Now Walter, this massive hulk of a being, is going to put this mask on. What in the world? We're almost near the end of the book. I'm like, what is going to happen? He throws the mask onto his face, and his big ass head is too big for the mask, and it just kind of slides off. Nothing happens.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, it's so funny because this is when I sent you a message, and I was like, I did not expect that to be the ending. Yeah. I was expecting something completely different. So the mask falls off of Walter. Walter just has this blank look on his face, grabs the mask, and then throws it into the lake and walks off. And that's how they end the book. That's how they end the book. And I want to real quick just ask you, Did you give it any thought? I've seen a little bit of commentary about the end of this book. Did you give it any thought as to why the mask didn't work for Walter? Do you think it was just because his head was too big, or do you think it was something different?
The implication is that his head's too big, which again, the movie doesn't care. The dog sticks its face in the mask.
Exactly.
I think almost the impression I got was the way it's drawn. It's just his face doesn't fit in the mask. So without that physical connection to your actual face, the magic doesn't work. But I was also wondering. If that's just what it was this thing had run out of magic. It had been on too many people. And again, I talked about this in our first podcast, where they don't really tell you what this mask is or why it works. I think about the Green Lanterns, and it's a smartly written thing because they wrote in some obstacles to deal with as the Green Lantern. Like, you have to power it up. This thing eventually runs out of juice. So you have to power your ring up, and if you don't, it won't work for you. So stuff like that. The Flash's Speed Force, he has to eat. If he doesn't have enough energy, he can't run. Things like that. Superman has kryptonite. Batman's a guy.
Batman's a guy.
If you shoot him, he dies. I don't remember if Wonder Woman had any vulnerabilities or not. I suppose they could be stronger people than Wonder Woman. But a lot of characters have their own built-in things that prevent them from being unstoppable. And we never get that with the mask. It's your own force of will, your own ability to either you're tricked out of it, or you become aware that this thing is trying to hurt you, and you take it off and throw it in a river or some shit. But as far as why it didn't work for Walter, a plausible explanation is it ran out of magic. But then, is that something it can do? Does it run out of magic?
We don't know. Yeah,
we don't know. It's one of the limitations of this entire 3-book series. And I know I said this in the previous podcast, but it bears repeating. I feel like I said it on a podcast not that long ago. I think it was one with Jason when we were talking about satire and parody and black comedies. And I said, modern parody and satire assumes the audience is a bunch of dumbbells. So it dumbs down the comedy and it lampshades all the jokes, which makes it a less enjoyable experience for me. It's why I prefer Mel Brooks to the modern way and stuff, or old Mel Brooks, because new Mel Brooks sucks. And if they do a Spaceballs 2, I may join a terrorist group. But I feel like Arcudi got to a point with this between the movie, because I think the first 2 books are written pretty smartly. This 3rd book I don't think is written as smartly, and I kind of think he kind of fell into that same trap of, oh, everyone reading this is just dummies. They're dummies who like the movie. They're dummies who just want the Punisher mowing people down with a machine gun. I don't want to put that much effort into this anymore. So it's just like finding funny sight gags. It's like, this is more colorful and more broad than the first 2 books. And I think that was a purposeful choice. He just kind of assumed his audience was stupid and wrote that way, wrote to his audience, which is kind of a shame.
Well, I think you use the word broad, and I think that's apt, because really what we get to see here is, okay, well, let's watch the mask get on a few different people, and let's see what happens.
Right. Again, the movie does that. The mask gets on. It's on Jim Carrey. It's on Dorian. It's on the dog at one point. And then I don't think I've ever seen all of Son of Mask, but from what I understand, that's another one where it's like, no, let's put it on a baby. It stops being about anything, and it becomes, what else can we do with the stupid mask?
Right.
It's not a lot of fun for me.
So to kind of circle back to the question I asked you, the commentary that I had seen about Walter and the mask, a lot of people theorize that the mask is supposed to bring out that crazy part of you. Mm-hmm. And what people have said is that Walter didn't have some kind of crazy inside part of him.
The mask is like cocaine. What is it about cocaine that makes it so wonderful? Well, it intensifies your personality. Yes, but what if you're an asshole?
Well, I guess Walter was the ultimate asshole here, because nothing happened.
Well, I think that's an interesting theory, because Walter's kind of a blank slate. He's kind of just a force of nature. I talked in the previous podcast about the Hulk without Banner is just a force of destruction, and that's kind of all Walter is. Though I think it's a little unfair, because in the second book, I think you talked about, like, he cut his face. He's clearly more than just a hulking body. He's somebody who has a fair idea of what his presence looks like and feels like, and definitely likes to intimidate people.
Right. Yeah. I thought as far as the third book goes, it definitely is. You use the word sanitized. I feel that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What is up with the lion with the gold teeth? What a weird.
I feel like that was an allusion to Biggie Smalls. You ever see the picture of Biggie with the crown on?
Okay, I know what you're talking about. It's from Luke Cage, or was it Luke Cage? Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I might be reaching.
I don't know.
But again, they put gold teeth on a tiger. Who else has gold teeth? I'll give you 3 guesses. First 2 don't count.
I just couldn't. I didn't get it. It was so funny because it's a running gag to where at one point the guy that ends up finding Walter at the beginning of the book decides that he's going to do a heist by killing the lion and taking the teeth, and that's where that all goes down. And Archie shows up and stops that from happening. But I just think it's hilarious that was something people were pissed off at. The city had paid, or the zoo had paid $14,000 to put gold teeth on a lion, which is, I guess I'd be pissed too. I will say that the lettering by Lois.
Oh my God. That irritated my eyes after.
Oh, did it really? I thought it was great. I thought it fit perfect. I was like, this is
not that it doesn't. I'm not disagreeing with you, but like after sometimes the way the voice box for the mask is lettered, some of the words look out of order, and I really have to focus on it. I think is my issue.
Okay, I got you. There was a lot more freedom with that here. Lois took that thing to the nth degree, where at some point I think she was writing in cursive just because when the mask would show up and say something, or it was just really, really over the top. And I thought personally, I thought it fit perfectly with the type of book and what was going on, the insanity that was going on the page. But yeah, overall, not as violent as the first 2 in any way. So as far as enjoying the trilogy as a whole, I did. It was a lot of pages. My goodness, we went through, so it was 5, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
So 14 issues this thing took. But I think it did have this weird epilogue, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, where the Archie's butterfly hatched out of this worm.
Oh yeah, I kind of just skip read that.
I don't know what the hell. All it did was the butterfly, the monarch butterfly hatched, took off, and then immediately got ate by some kind of a bird. And then that was the.
I was expecting the bird to be wearing the fucking mask or something.
I'm sure there's probably some kind of weird commentary. No clue what it meant.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, final thoughts. Anything else you'd like to say?
As a whole, ending our 3 podcast series on this mask omnibus, the mask returns, and the mask strikes back. On the whole, I enjoyed reading it. On the whole, I think the mask is a fun character. Do I have any urge to read any further mask stuff? No. Yeah.
Or when I started reading this actually today, I was like, man, I really don't know what the hell Mark's going to have to say about this book. Because there isn't a whole lot that really has happened. You get some good, maybe some character stuff with the mask and how they bring stuff out, but the whole mystery of the mask is just not uncovered. There's nothing really here to chew on.
You're not wrong. I had more to say about this than I had Swamp Thing, Protector of the Green.
Oh boy,
my God, where we barely made 22 minutes with that. No, I think as a whole, I kind of put on my critical reader brain, my critical reader hat, and I deconstructed it as best I could. I don't think, to kind of paraphrase kind of Ronnie's opinion on things, some stuff is not meant for deconstruction. It's just meant to be enjoyed. But that would take 5 minutes of this podcast, and 4 of it would be an introduction. So that's the problem between at least here when I thought about it and we were kicking some ideas around, there was places for me to drill into this and go, okay, well, I can pull this out and I can pull that out. Could we have done a different podcast tonight and talked about something else? Sure. And I could have just read this for fun and profit and been done with it. But no, I didn't. I liked our conversations. I like the way these podcasts, I think, turned out, or how they're going to turn out. And I think I'm done with this character, though. I think this has been on my mind to do for a while. I wanted to do a comic strip with Evan, but there was never. I think in retrospect, if we had just done The Mask and The Mask Returns and compared it to the movie, we'd have had something, because there's a lot that cribs from both of those books. Nothing in The Mask Strikes Back, except for the fact that the tone more matches the movie. But I think just sort of watching the movie and sort of touching on it as part of our discussion and kind of weaving it into each one of these books, the discussions of the movie, I think worked out better since it's not a direct adaptation. But I was saying, like, the Mask has been something I've been wanting to read for a while, but wanted something I wanted to talk about for a while, and now I don't have to do this ever again.
Would you want a rated R uber violent Mask movie?
Not in 2024.
Okay. All right.
Had somebody gone back. See, because if you remember, not to start a whole new podcast with you, but do you remember?
I got nothing better to do.
Work tomorrow. Do you remember the 90s, Jesse? Spawn?
I was there. Oh, yeah.
The Spawn movie and the Spawn cartoon. Yep. There was the Crow. There was a period where a lot of independent or under the radar comics got made into barbed wire, got made into movies, and they kind of went for they were trying to find that balance between let's gritty and violent, but also broad enough to get a general audience to come and pay money to watch this and make a killing on it. And they never quite found the right balance. But I think that was also the last time you could do that. I don't think you can get away with an uber violent Mask now. I think it would be worse. I think it would even.
I don't know, man. I think what we get is similar to Deadpool.
But Deadpool, that first Deadpool movie.
Okay.
Maybe I'm misremembering it, but all I can remember is an elongated sex scene. And yeah, he kills a lot of people, but I don't remember it even being that over the top violent.
I think it was fairly violent.
You think they could do a Deadpool-esque? I'll tell you what. Can we put a pin in this conversation and see how Deadpool and Wolverine turns out?
Yeah. The reason I just feel like you could draw parallels. Wade Wilson, Deadpool is absolutely invulnerable. At least he's got the massive healing factor. I was expecting the Mask when he got a hole shot through his chest, it would just go suck right back in. But and you got the witty retorts. The Mask definitely has a little bit more of a cartoonish bent to him, but still makes the jokes while he's killing people. So I don't know. I was just saying. I feel like
Deadpool. By the same token, we have Deadpool. Do we need another Deadpool?
Exactly. That's the other thing. If there was one, it would be, you would probably think to yourself, "Well, my goodness, this feels a lot like Deadpool."
That was Robert's argument. Was when we were talking. I can't remember what podcast was. I know Alexis was on it, and the subject of Deadpool came up, and like his big thing was, I think Lobo had preceded Deadpool. No, it was the other way around. We were talking about James Gunn. This is the Aquaman podcast, and we were talking about James Gunn. And Alexis was, of course, beating the drum that James Gunn is the savior of all things comic book. And I kept trying to tell her he's not. Please stop. And then the whole subject of, and then she got all fucking Alexis about it because she was like, "Oh, look, Jason Momoa might be playing Lobo," and Robert about lost his fucking mind. And was just like, ugh, we don't need Lobo. We don't need a Lobo movie. We don't need this character. We have already got Deadpool. We don't need fucking Lobo too. And that's kind of, I sympathize with Robert's argument, essentially. Lobo, the Mask, Deadpool. After a while, it's like, how many invulnerable, wisecracking assholes do we need? Murdering assholes.
Murdering.
Could you imagine there's an entire team of these guys just all doing the same bit?
Boy.
Be like my son. He couldn't take my daughter fucking an ounce of attention. Fucking the Mask killing. They'd all kill each other. They'd all just Lobo, Deadpool, the Mask, whoever else would all be trying to kill each other because like I'm the star of this thing. No, I'm the wisecracking star.
I would watch it. In a heartbeat. Look, I enjoyed myself. I read the 3 issue, or I read the omnibus. It was a lot of pages, but it flew by pretty quick. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, so, I got it done in a day. I started it this morning, went out for a little while, went to a car wash that ran out of soap and water.
Oh.
Yeah, that was my day. I had to go find another car wash because the car wash I had been dying to go to and looked like it was really going to be nice and I was going to get my car cleaned inside and out. Nope. We're like, turn around, pal. We're out of water and soap. The 2 things that make a car wash. Anyway, ridiculous. So in between my car wash, not a car wash, I read the book and I got it done in a fair amount of time.
Good deal. All right, let's get into plugs, man. What's going on?
All right, all of our podcasts are on W2M Network. Our YouTube is W2M Network. Our Twitch is W2M Network. Our landing page is W2M Network. If you're on Apple Music or Spotify, I forgot to say this earlier on our other podcast, but if you're actually using traditional audio to listen to a podcast, and really, like, what are you, like 20 years ago? Then all of our feeds have been broken down into individual feeds, and all of my stuff is on Rattledge and Broadcasting. That's where you'll find Daniel Hollywood, On Trial, Triple Feature, a lot of triple features as of late. Jason and I have decided 5 shows is way too many. 3 shows is not enough. 5 shows is too many. The Holy Hand Grenade says 4. But also check out my TikTok at Mark Rattledge, MarkRadulich, at Mark Rattledge on TikTok. Clips of the show, of all of our podcasts, and then karaoke and concert footage and funny stuff that my kids do. All of that's all there. The occasional me and Jonas commenting on someone's cooking. all of the gross cooking.
Oh.
My girlfriend, she joined my parents and I for dinner for my mom's birthday a little ways back, and she ordered a 6-ounce fillet, and her 2 sides were mashed potatoes and French fries. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, "Are you 7? What the fuck? Eat a green vegetable, Jesus Christ!" The fuck orders that?
I would like my potatoes mashed, but I would also like them in a different shape over
I would
here.
like them, yes, I would like fried sticks as well as mush. And I want a steak the size of a hamburger patty.
Steak and taters.
Like, for God's sake, you went to Longhorns. Get yourself a fucking ribeye. All right, I'm done.
Hey, you're listening to the Source Material Comics podcast right here on the Source Material Comics feed. We are part of the W2Mnet.com. And listen, check out me and Mark talking about the first 2 books that led up to The Mask Strikes Back. The Mask Strikes Back. I really don't have much else to plug except for keep an eye out. I believe at some point here pretty soon, you'll be hearing an all music episode of Source Material. That's right. Mark Radulich, be prepared. We're going to have AI created songs based off of books that we have covered in the past. And it's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be pretty fun. If you had the chance to listen to Booster Gold, you will get to hear Dark Man. That's right. The song's already created. It's all ready to go. And I just might even have a song for The Mask. I have to figure out what genre it'll be. What do you think, Mark? What genre should The Mask song be?
Ska.
Ska? Oh, yes. Boy. It could do ska. I've heard ska done really well. Suno.ai has done ska. All right. That being said, we're getting out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Source Material Comics podcast. That right there is Mark Radulich. I am Jesse Starcher. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon when we're going to be discussing Lois Lane, Enemy of the People. Sounds pretty scary. We're out of here. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.